All right, we are about to journey back in time, about 1,500 years, to solve an incredible intellectual mystery. But trust me, this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. This is a high-stakes detective story, and all the clues, they're hidden right in the pages of the Talmud. And I get it, that's a fair question. You're probably thinking about rituals, priests, ancient rules, not clues and culprits. But the ancient rabbis, they were some of the most rigorous, logical detectives you could ever imagine, and we're about to crack one of their toughest cases. That's right, everything. So I want you to think of the ancient temple as our crime scene. The biblical verses are our evidence, and the brilliant scholars, they're our detectives. Our entire investigation today is going to come from just one super dense page of the Talmud, Zevachim 55a. Let's dive in. So our case kicks off with a simple question of, let's call it, sacred geography. See, every single action in the temple was governed by incredibly precise rules. But the rabbis found what looked like a gap in their legal code. They had a rule, but they couldn't find the original source for it. Okay, first things first, we gotta get our terms straight. You've got two main categories of offerings. The first is Kodeshei Kodeshim, or most sacred offerings. This is the top-tier stuff. Everything about them, where they were prepared, who could even touch them, was subject to the absolute strictest rules. And then you have the lesser sanctity offerings. Now, they were still holy, of course, but the rules were a bit more relaxed. They could be handled in more places, by more people. And the distinction between these two categories, that difference is the key to our entire mystery. And this table right here, it shows us the missing piece of the puzzle. The rabbis knew exactly where the burnt offering and the sin offering had to be handled, north side of the courtyard, period. But then look at the communal peace offering. The source for its location, it was missing. That question mark, that is our case. So, our first detective steps onto the scene, a scholar named Rabba bar Rav Hanan, and he presents his first clue. He points to a verse in Leviticus where the peace offering is mentioned right in the same breath as the sin offering. His theory is pretty simple. If they're neighbors in the text, their laws must be connected. But just when you think, okay, easy enough, case closed, in walks the master detective, a guy named Rava. He takes one look at this evidence and immediately spots a fundamental flaw in the reasoning. And this, my friends, is where the intellectual drama really heats up. Now, to get what Rava is about to do, you need to understand one of their key forensic tools. It's called a hakasher. It's basically a principle of interpretation that says when the Torah puts two things side by side, it's never an accident. It's a signal, an invitation to link their laws together. It's the main tool they're using here. So here's that first detective's chain of evidence. The rule for the burnt offering, that's from a direct source. Then, the sin offering learns its rule from the burnt offering. And finally, the peace offering learns its rule from the sin offering. It seems logical, right? A simple chain. A leads to B, and B leads to C. But is it legally sound? And this is Rava's brilliant cross-examining question. It's an absolute killer. He's pointing out a fundamental principle of their legal system. You can't create a chain of second-hand evidence like this. A rule that's learned through a hekesh is considered a weaker link. And you can't use a weak link as the foundation to then teach another rule via another hekesh. The chain is broken. But Rava doesn't just poke holes, he actually comes back with a solution. He finds a totally different verse, this one from the book of Numbers, that creates a direct link. It puts the peace offering right next to the burnt offering, the original solid source. This is first-hand evidence, a strong, unbreakable link. The logic is clean. It really seems like the mystery is solved. For real this time. But in the world of the Talmud, no solution ever gets a pass until it's been stress-tested against the entire system. And here comes our next brilliant mind, Abe. He takes Rava's seemingly perfect solution and shows that by fixing this one problem, it actually creates a brand new one somewhere else entirely. Abe's question is just devastatingly simple. He basically says, okay, Rava, you might be right, but if that original clue from Leviticus isn't for teaching us the slaughter location, then what is it for? You see, in their world, the Torah doesn't waste words. That juxtaposition must be teaching us something. Rava, thinking on his feet, proposes a new interpretation. He pivots. He says the verse isn't about where the offering is slaughtered, but about who gets to eat it. Just like the sin offering is reserved for the male priests, he argues, so too is the communal peace offering. Pretty neat pivot, right? It saves the verse. And this is where Abaye masterfully lays his trap. He says, okay, Rava, let's test that new rule of yours. He brings up a parallel case, the Nazirite's ram offering. And guess what? In the Torah, it's also placed right next to a sin offering. So if Rava's logic is consistent, the same rules have to apply here too. And this just brilliantly illustrates the checkmate. For the communal peace offering, Rava's new rule works just fine. It is only eaten by male priests. But apply that same logic to the Nazirite's ram, and you get a glaring contradiction. The system has another well-known rule that says the Nazirite's offering can be eaten by any ritually pure person. Rava's solution just broke another part of the system. So now what do? You can't just leave a contradiction like that unresolved. The goal isn't just about winning an argument, it's about making sure the entire system is perfectly coherent. So they get to work, refining the rules to account for Abaye's powerful objection. So how did they finally solve it? Well, they work through a few theories. The first attempt, it just doesn't hold up. A second one tries to make a distinction based on levels of sanctity, but the final accepted solution is the most elegant of all. It turns out the juxtaposition for the Nazirite's ram has nothing to do with who eats it. It's there to teach a completely different rule about when the Nazirite's vow is officially complete. And just like that, every piece of the puzzle finally finds its place. Now, with all those contradictions resolved, the text kind of zooms out to give us the complete picture. It's not just about where you slaughter the offering. It turns out it's also about where you're allowed to eat it. And this introduces a whole other layer of sacred geography. The crucial idea here is that there were these distinct zones of holiness. The easiest way to picture it is like concentric circles. At the very center, you have the sacred place, the courtyard itself, which was reserved for eating the most sacred offerings. The next circle out is the purer place, and the widest circle is the pure place, which was the entire city of Jerusalem, and that's where lesser sanctity offerings could be eaten. And here it is, our final case summary. Every single detail, meticulously debated and derived, now fits into a perfectly coherent system. We can see the level of sanctity, the slaughter location, who eats it, and where it's eaten. That one little question mark from the very beginning has now been replaced by a complete and consistent rulebook. And that really is the biggest takeaway here. I mean, the specific rules about offerings are fascinating, but the true subject of our whole investigation was the intellectual process itself. It's this relentless, almost fanatical pursuit of logical consistency, where every verse, every single word, has to have a purpose and has to fit within one unified whole. And that leaves us with a final thought. This ancient method of debugging a legal and spiritual system, of making sure there are no contradictions, no loopholes, it isn't so different from the challenges we face today. Where else do we see this same fanatical, but absolutely necessary attention to detail? The code that runs our world, the laws that govern our societies, they all depend on getting the logic exactly right.